welcome to the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. I am your host, Celeste Hartwell, and we are a feminine view of entrepreneurship for women, by women. Unofficially, we interview women who are making a shit ton of money and breaking all the rules. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. I am your host, Celeste Hartwell, and as we have been starting to start these podcast episodes, I am introducing you to a card that I pulled today from the Divine Feminine Oracle by Megan Watterson, and I'm really excited about this. So today our card pull is Dakini, the Enlightened Feminine. And she says, my gut instinct is wise beyond reason. I trust my intuition to guide me. A little bit further, it talks about how she is the embodiment of a feminine wisdom that goes beyond reason or the intellect. Her name, Dakini, is translated into Tibetan as sky goer. She is a tantric priestess and a female manifestation. She is elusive, playful, and ultimately defies definition. She represents the enlightened feminine principle of non-duality that transcends gender. And as a space dancer and skygoer, the Dakini has left the rigid boundaries of Earth and the laws of gravity. She can appear as a messenger, a guide, or as a protector. She is known for being unruly in whatever she does because the ordinary rules of conduct don't apply to her. Okay, so I'm really loving this based on who we have today because I just love how these cards kind of guide the conversation and really allow us to see into like what is going to come out of this conversation. And so this is just a beautiful card for a beautiful woman. So today I am so honored to invite Kami Guildner to our podcast. And Kami believes that women's voices matter. She is a connector, a storyteller, a business coach for changemaker women who of influence. And Kami's entrepreneurial journey was sparked by the breath of a horse over a decade ago. This magical epiphany moment led Kami to discover her purpose of leading changemaker women to give voice to their most important messages and create a ripple effect of worldly impact. She weaves soulful inspiration into mindful business strategies, helping her clients uplevel their business. With decades of leadership, marketing, strategic planning, and business growth expertise, Kami guides her clients to manifest their marketing, money, and mindset. Kami's soulful spirit leads her clients to unleash their magical manifestation powers and live out loud, fueled with vitality and courage. She is the founder of Extraordinary Women Ignite Conference, Extraordinary Women Connect events, and Extraordinary Women Radio, a podcast featuring wildly successful women making an impact on the world. Her podcast was named Best Business Podcast in the 2018 People's Choice Awards. Kami has featured guests such as Tasha Silver, Sark, Zane Salby, Beth Comstock, and Lisa Rankin. Kami is the author of Fire Dancer, Your Spiral Journey to a Life of Passion and Purpose, and she was named the 2020 25 Most Powerful Women in Business list by the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce. The other, just as an aside, Kami is such an incredible woman, and I'm so honored to have her on the stage here today because we actually met through eWomen Network, and she had me on her podcast, Extraordinary Women Radio, just a month ago or so. And so I invite you to go look for that episode. I'll also link it in the comments and on my website when we get to that space. But I just really want to welcome Kami. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm like, this is so juicy, this card pull and
Totally.
What we're talking about. So we are talking about the 5 rules of marketing that you need to break. And so first off, I guess we should start at the beginning. So tell me about how the horse's breath, that just stuck out to me. And I was like, we need to hear this story.
Oh, thanks so much. I love that story. And it was just one of those epiphany moments that forever changed my life. It was one of those moments where I was feeling really lost, really broken apart, like the universe had like taken me apart and said, this is not the pathway you're meant to be on. You're meant to be doing something different. And I didn't know what it was. I was on a call with a coach that day, and I was like, I'm lost. I was in tears. I was like, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm meant to do or where I'm meant to go, but I don't want to go back to the corporate world. And so she paused in that for a moment. She said, what you should do today is go out and breathe the breath of your horse. I was like, okay, that's a new one for me. I've been a horse person my whole life, but that was a new one for me. So I did. And my mare was standing at the gate looking at me as I walked out the door, and about 18 inches of fresh snow in Colorado that day. Trudged up to the hills, trudged to see her, and just started to take a moment with her. And I was like, where am I supposed to go? What am I meant to be doing? And I had been doing a lot of inner work leading up to that moment, but it hadn't all come together. And in that moment, I turned my back up against her withers, and I was like, just had my head back up on her, just breathing back and forth, back and forth. And suddenly it became clear I wasn't supposed to go back to the corporate world. I was meant to do something different. And I had just learned about someone who was doing equine guided coaching with leadership and personal growth and all of these sorts of things. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing ever. And so that's what opened up the doorway to me becoming an equine guided coach, which, led me into the whole different world and down a whole new pathway. And that was what the horses were really the ones that led me into the world of coaching. And it took many evolutions after that, but it was, just one of those spectacular moments that, from that day I went back to my into the house and journaled. And within a week I'd signed up for some equine guided coaching training in Northern California. I headed off for a month of training in Northern, with one of the pioneers in that work. And that was where it all started.
Oh, I love that. I love how literally just being present,
right,
and being in the moment just kind of snapped you back to who you really were, right?
Exactly.
Instead of like being in the corporate world and being that person who just needs to do what other people are saying and desiring and all of that, and really being able to reconnect into who you are and what you desired.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a very divinely guided moment. And because I wasn't thinking in that direction, I mean, I really thought I was going back to the corporate world, but it became so clear in that moment that you're not meant to go do that again. There's something different for you to explore and to find. And, I think about, and that was almost 12 years ago at this point. And, so it was just such a spectacular shift in my life. And I never saw things through the same eyes ever again.
That's just incredible. So then how are you helping women today? Like,
Yes.
I love this, how you're so passionate about women's voices and being a connector and a storyteller. And so tell me how you're really helping women right now being the change maker.
Well, I truly believe that women's wisdom is the medicine our earth needs. And to me, that's my mission, is to get women's voices out, to help them step into the purpose that they have in their life and really grow a business in a way that helps them go out and make a big impact in the world. I actually have a mission statement that is impacting 1 million women around the world, helping them step into their voice and the vision of their business and really create an impact on the world. Because I think that this is we're going through such an interesting time right now, right? And this transformation that our world is taking is so important that we own our gifts of who we are and step into really living at the level and showing up at the level that we're being called to do. Not to sit back and play small in it, but really to step up into it and make an impact, because that's why we're on the earth right now.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. So I'm curious how that feeds into these 5 rules of marketing that we need to break. Like, tell me all about these, because I mean, I just want to, give value to the people who are listening, and also
Mm-hmm.
just like here, because I feel like there is so much wisdom in the feminine wisdom, and I feel like you've maybe tapped into that in a really
Yeah.
deep way. That's
Yeah.
juicy.
And you know what's fun is this. I mean, I was a traditionally trained marketer. I mean, I was a VP of marketing and branding in my corporate days, 20 plus years in that space, right? And so I know I know the linear way to do marketing. And I even at some point really went down some very linear masculine ways of doing of marketing my own business. And it was interesting. I kind of started it out in a very authentic way. I was just like so excited. I was so wound up about what I was doing and the impact that I was going to create in the world. I was very naturally in a feminine space.
Hmm.
And then I was like, started seeing these shiny stars of, okay, do it this way. And, here's the 7 steps to da, 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 follow these formulas. And I shifted all my marketing up to do more of that linear approach, the more masculine approach to marketing. And guess what? My business that had been on this nice upward trajectory suddenly got flat, and then it even dropped a year. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong here? And of course I get in my head and I got all trying to, and then I thought, wait a minute, this is not about a head thing. I need to really, this is about me being me. And so I took a lot of this deep journey of reconnecting back to who I am. Just the same kind of thing I had done right before the horse, right? I'd been doing all that reconnection back to me, came back home to me, played with the eclipse, played with all these different, nature and the horses and all that kind of thing. And clarity came back to me for my brand, which really shifted it up. And my business grew again, like dramatically from that point forward. And so when I talk about breaking the rules, it's because I fell into that trap of, oh my gosh, I started following all those linear approaches, the masculine approaches. And what I know is that it makes a big difference when we drop into our marketing from a different way. So first of all
Hold on. Can you hold that spot for a
sure.
second?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you said something that was could have really been easily overlooked, but it was like so loud to me. You said that you got in contact with your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So can you just dive in a little bit deeper on that and tell me what that looked like and felt like? Because I often say on this show that like our business, our projects, our ideas have their own life force energy, right? And they come and I feel like they tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, whenever you're ready, I'm right here, right? So I just want to like hear a little bit more about how you connected into that and what that looked like for you.
Totally. I'm glad you asked. It's because it was a beautiful journey, and it was a full year. I was stopping and I was journaling and I was like, what the heck is my business want to be? And part of it was I was shifting up how I was serving people. And so the question that I started with was journaling on what does my business want to be? What do you want to be, business? Tell me. And so I started to be really curious about that question and would journal on it quite often. And I would make rituals around it. And I started to play with that. So that's where some of one of the biggest profound moments that in that was my business wanted to be it wanted a spiritual component. And I was like, what? That was just like such a foreign claim for me to make. I knew the horse work was very spiritual. I knew nature took me in a very spiritual journey. But for me to claim being a spiritual driven, guided business, probably not driven, that's the wrong word, spiritual guided business. That was I had to really sit with that and go, what does that even mean for me? Because I didn't consider them. In fact, when I had thought about spiritual for me back in the corporate world, I would have never gone there. First of all, I would have never put those pieces together with business and spiritual. I would have never gone there. I'd had some bad experiences in my early 20s around someone trying to push religion down my throat, and I'd really backed out of it. And so when I really, when I really started reconnecting to that spiritual journey for myself, with the horses, being in nature, and just coming back home to who I was. My father had died in the midst of losing my job and all of that sort of thing. So there was a lot of big personal growth that I'd gone on. And it really took me back down a much deeper spiritual journey. So, 5 years later, when I, got this message that my business was supposed to have a spiritual component in helping people grow their businesses, I was like, okay, that's blowing my mind a little bit.
Right.
But I kept listening, right? And I kept saying, okay, I'm listening to what's coming forth here. And I was playing with cards. I was playing with the eclipse. I was journaling on questions. If my brand was an animal, what would it be? So just exploring and looking for the essence of what my brand wanted to be. And as I did that, I started to get this vision of a whole different way of doing marketing, a whole different way of being an entrepreneur, especially a coach or a consultant, and building brand from that inside out. And that is the first rule that I talk about in marketing to break, the rules to break is building your brand from the inside out. And that's exactly what I did in that year-long transformation. I think that being an entrepreneur is a huge spiritual journey. Right. And that's, I have grown personally so much in the 12 years that I've been an entrepreneur, probably 100 times more so than I grew in my corporate world, right? For 20 plus years, because it's just such a different journey to go down. And so if we start with this, why are we here right now? What's the reason we're here? And just starting to ask the universe those questions, we start to get, the universe starts to give us all these clues, all these signposts that will tell us, that will guide us and say, this is the right direction, my friend. It's real easy. Just follow this. And the universe makes it easy for us when we step into that path. And when we're feeling the resistance, we're not in alignment with that. So that's exactly what I had found at that point. Was I was not in alignment. I was struggling, and I stopped, I paused, I listened, I did all that work, and suddenly I opened up into this new pathway, and it became very easy.
I love that. I so resonate with that, because I feel like when we do follow the nudges, like I just said, like, I feel like it taps me on the shoulder and it takes me by the hand, and it just, like, the universe just wants to, like, lead you down the path, right? And when we follow those little nudges, which may, like, not make any sense to our cognitive minds,
right,
and to our, that prehistoric, like, survival mechanism that we have in our brain, but it makes life so much easier. So yeah, I love that. So the first tip, it sounded like, was build your brand from the inside out. This is part of the 5 rules of marketing that we need to break. Right. So I love that. So what is number 2?
Yeah, number 2 is that there's no such thing as competition, because when we step into our best light of who we are, when we are being who we, when our brand is built around who we are at our very essence, at our very core, and we're serving the people that we're meant to serve, there is no one just like you. So it takes out all the competition piece of it. And what's even better about that is the collaboration piece, because then you get to play with people who do amazing things in their work, bringing their best gifts. You bring your best gifts. And what that creates together is this incredible space to be able to, it's the 1 + 1 = 4, right? That's how, when we look at marketing from a feminine perspective, that's our natural ability, is to come together in collaboration. And that throws out all the competition side of it.
I love that, because there is so much more power in numbers. And when we realize, when I used to help people write books, this was a big thing of like, there are already 50,000 books on XYZ topic that I'm writing on. And I was always so clear, like, but no one says it the way you say it. Like, no one has your voice and your energy and your heart for it. And when we can connect in our business, the same way that I was training people to do that with their books, is like, when you can connect into why you're doing something, why it's so important, your passion around it, then that feeling of love is what's going to come through. And that's what gets people really excited. And then they understand, like, you may do something a little bit slightly different than I do, but we can complement each other. And I think, like you mentioned, like, women are just such natural community builders.
We really are. And I think the other part about that, Celeste, is that we've got stories. I mean, we've got life experiences that have made us ready for this time. Right. Now, going back to this, we were born at this time right now for a reason. And we've had this divinely list of life experiences and stories that have gotten us to this point, and nobody has the same exact stories and experiences that you have. So it's, all of that together means that we can show up and we can understand somebody's experience that they're going through, in our unique lens, because we've been through our unique journeys as well.
Right. I love that. Oh, It's so delicious. It's so juicy. So tell me tip number 3.
And this is one that I get on a soap stand about, because we've all seen it. Yeah. We've all seen the scarcity, the fear-based marketing that is out in the world. I mean, it's so prevalent. It makes us feel less than. It makes us feel, oh my gosh, am I good enough? And we don't need to be spreading that as entrepreneurs, as coaches, as people who are really here to lift people up. If we play into this game of marketing to the fear and the scarcity, we just continue to create more of that. Right. Versus coming into, okay, what is it that my clients are really desiring? What do they aspire to? And we have to understand, the challenges and the pains and the fears and all. We have to understand that as a marketer, but we don't have to proliferate it. And so my what is this? This is the third one, is stop the pain-based and scarcity marketing, and do this in a way that where you're really just speaking to what your ideal clients are desiring. You're helping them see more possibilities in their life versus pulling them down. And it's so, have you ever, Celeste, purchased, say, gone and hired a coach or hired something for your business out of fear, or has it been because of what else is possible?
I've done both.
Okay.
Multiple times. Both.
Yeah.
And I will say that the pain-based and the scarcity, I never get the result that I desire out of it.
Yeah. 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 And because why? Is because we're getting in a smaller, we're playing smaller when we do that, versus suddenly we're like, oh my gosh, that's possible. Just think of the difference between that energetic of, what's possible, or, oh my gosh, if I don't do this right, you get this rigid line, or soft lines.
And so I just want to explain that for anybody who may not understand what we're talking about here from an energetic perspective. But what we're talking about is that when you feel this energy, it's a feeling, right? Yes. So when you're feeling, if you're buying something from a space of, oh, that's going to fix me, or I'm not good enough, so this is going to be the answer, or I got to do it because otherwise I'm going to go broke in my business, or, this is the thing that I've been missing forever. There's all of these different layering, and it's that feeling that we feel when we do that. And so when we pay attention to our feelings in our bodies, it gives us a lot of information. And so to me, what you're talking about, Kami, is like when I buy from people who are inspiring me, like it's almost like my shoulders go back,
Totally.
right? And my
Totally.
chest opens up. And I had this visual last week that was like the Care Bear stare comes out, right? Like, and it's like I feel powerful and like
Yes.
really like, wow, she can have that. I can have that too. And this also just goes back to number 2. That's also, right? Like there is no such thing as competition. It really is a different energetic space.
It is. And our energy, how we resonate energetically really matters, because when we get into the when we think about feeling really high, resonating on a high vibe, we're really excited about something, or we're having fun, we're laughing, we're playing, we're resonating high energy, high vibrational energy. Or if we're worried, it's really taken us down that scale to, again, our energetic vibration is a lower level. And the more that we can practice being in that space of high vibration, that's where we can really show up in our best light.
I love that. And I do love how I feel like the inspirational marketing, that's what I'll call it, is so powerful. But I love how you said as well that it's not that we don't know the pain points of our customers, and it's not that we don't understand them.
Right.
And it's not that we haven't been there in the past even. It's really about, but that doesn't help them really see what is possible for them.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I think it's that energy of possibility is expansive. And that's what we want to step into. We can, in our marketing language, we might pose a couple questions out of that fear, that the pain side of things. It gets people to say, oh my gosh, yes, I get that. And then it's not about, if you don't do this. And I think this is the big part of it, right? If you don't do what I'm inviting you to do with me, you're just going to forever stay there, because that's not where you want to lead people. And I know there's people that teach this in sales. I know they teach it in marketing. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to try it out. Know it, get that you've got their attention with the question, and then really lead into it. But here's what's possible when you do these things. This is what's really possible. And it will change the level of people that you're drawing into your business. It will change how people are succeeding in your work. And so it's got multiple layers of how it really impacts, gives an impact back to the world.
It's so beautiful and it's so profound, and I'm just loving it. I mean, I think that it also here's the thing that comes up for me when I'm like reading back into the card that was pulled for this particular session is that, my gut instinct is wise beyond reason. I trust my intuition to guide me. It's also, there's this space also of respecting the client's intuition as to what they're ready to. There's this space of respect. That in the fear-based marketing is not there. It's I know better than you.
Right.
You
it's
have to do this
thing,
now.
Right?
It is the guru thing. It absolutely is. And or parental, or whatever. Like these people who maybe they were put on pedestals, maybe they put themselves there, who act as though they know more than you do about yourself, which is not true at the end of the day.
And I think when I think about working with my clients, I love to hold the space for them. I love to, help them see bigger than they might be seeing for themselves, and then hold the space that they work through the components of it, that they go deep, they listen, and they stretch into new spaces. So that becomes a different role than saying, okay, go follow this 5-step formula, which is my 4th one, is throw out the formulas, right? So it's like, let's get rid of the formulas of marketing, because there's no such thing as a magic bullet for any one of us, or magic pill, or whatever you want to call this. There's no such thing. So anybody that's telling you that, okay, here's the fastest way to 6 figures, to 7 figures, to, whatever that is for you. It's there's no such thing as a magic formula. And what it takes is tuning in. It takes listening to that inner wisdom, that intuition, just as you were just saying. And then, saying, okay, what's the universe asking me to do here? Where am I meant to stretch? How do I need support around that? And then pull the support in to help you on that journey.
I love this. And I feel like this also goes back to number one, which was build your brand from the inside out. And
Right.
like having that conversation, not only with yourself, but with your company, with your project, with your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And just saying like, okay, what is my next step? Right.
Right. And we'll get it. I mean, we will get those answers. Or if we're having those tough moments of trying to figure something out on this. Oops, I've got this cricket. I was going to pop this up. I use this all the time in my business, right?
Your
I use
pendulum.
pendulum,
For
right?
anybody who's just listening to this on the
Yes.
podcast, Kami just pulled out her pendulum.
And I do that. It's like, I'll be listening, and then I'll go, okay, I think I know what this is, and I'll test it, and lo and behold, it will, and it's funny because why do I pull out the pendulum and still want that reassurance that what my gut has already told me? But it is so amazing to me how often I get the same exact answer when I'm just testing that. So I think it's, just part of that trusting, learning to trust yourself. And, if there's ways that you can play with that, or just like you said, pulling a card every day from your divine feminine, whatever, any of those sorts of things help us see the journey of our business in a different way.
Yes. And there was another thing that came up for me. We'll see if it resurfaces. But it was mainly like, okay, that was what it was. So some of this in my space with my particular background, I get fearful of, but I don't have the time to tune into my business and to do all these things, these journaling and asking the business questions and having this conversation. And so I've found myself going, but I have nothing but time. Like this is exactly what I need to do to actually like move forward in a productive way instead of just wasting time all day, right?
And you'll get to that. You'll get to the answers much more quickly if you make that time and create that kind of a whatever your rituals look like. I mean, for me, mine is my morning rituals. I love my morning rituals. I like to just pause before the day starts. I love to, have that quiet space because I have a very busy mind. I know how to get shit done, right? I mean, I know how to do it. But that's not where my genius comes up. My genius really comes up when I slow down, when I stop to listen and go, okay, what's meant to happen here? And that's when the ideas and the universe really gets all in behind you. And guess what happens when you do that is the right people, the right ideas, the right thoughts, the right opportunities, right clients, all of that comes into play. It just starts dropping in your lap versus pushing you uphill.
I want to flag that too, because what you just said was asking the question and then relaxing. And to me, that's surrender. It's like trusting, just knowing the universe has your back. Like the universe has got you, like whatever you feel like your higher power is, God, source, energy, angels, your higher self, whatever that entity is named to you, is looking out for you in every single moment. And when we are able to, I'm almost like seeing it as like releasing the rope, right? They'll just let it go and trust that what is meant for you is going to come, and it might be something better, and be open for that too, instead of like, but I need this, and just being like, I don't know how this is going to come to me. I just know what I want. I don't know what, how it's going to get here, and that's okay.
Yeah, I've actually had people tell me, like mediums or psychics tell me, when you stop to listen, your guides are like jumping up and down saying, oh my God, she's finally listening. And I'm like, okay, I try to be there all the time, but it's like you go between those two, that mode of being and receiving, and then into the mode of, okay, releasing and being with that, and then the mode of getting things done. So you're maneuvering between those different spaces at different times. And I love it that, I've had that told to me a number of times. It's like your guides are waiting for you to pay attention. So do that.
I love that, because I think that that's the message that everyone gets when they
Yes.
go to somebody like that. It's
Yeah.
like, well, you just listen, you get the
Yes.
information, because we're all channels in that way. Like
Yeah.
everyone, whether they think that they are or not, we're always having these, and these signs, these guideposts, these opportunities arise in front of us. And, when we just allow ourselves to just relax and be like, oh,
Yeah.
look at that.
Listening back, thinking back to the card that you drew, right? Because that was it. It was intuition, and really
Right.
being in that space of trusting our intuition. It's there for us if we allow it to be.
It's so it always is.
Yeah.
So I want to back up a little bit, because I want to hear, and I always just get curious about people's morning routines. So before we go into 5, like, what is your morning routine?
So my morning routine is when I get the coffee going, or the lemon water, all that sort of thing. So that's kind of my first thing in the morning. Then I like to just make space for my meditation, and I do it in a number of different ways depending on the time of year. This morning it's cool here in Colorado, but I actually wrapped myself up in a Pendleton blanket and went outside. And I love this time of year when I can just go sit outside and set a timer and just be listening to the birds and the nature. And it's such a special time of year that everything's just starting to turn green. So that really, really feeds my soul, because I get to go do it outdoors. In Colorado, you don't do that all year long. So
yeah. I live in Vermont. Same.
Yeah. So I will, do it in my living room in front of a fireplace. I have a biomat that's got like the amethyst in the biomat, and I'll crank the heater up on that and do a meditation on that. So that's how I generally start off my morning ritual. And then sometimes I'll add movement into it. Sometimes I don't. I really like to just kind of tune into what's my body need right now. And then I really like to make space for journaling, gratitude, that sort of thing. So that's my ideal. I've got a book of runes, or a basket of runes sitting right there. I've got cards sitting right there. So I can, I've got a couple inspirational books that I'll pull from. I also love to read, like just to, read a little bit of something, whatever I happen to be reading right now. And all of that is just a nice, and I take about an hour and a half generally on any given day, where I'm making that kind of space to just be. And I'm not as good about it on the weekends. I tend to kind of let that go on the weekends and just get up a little bit later, but I still try to keep my meditations going, even if it's just laying in bed and listening to a meditation before I get up.
That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for indulging me in that question, because I always find it fascinating, because I know that when I first started my entrepreneurial journey 6 years ago, I was like, well, the successful people do this and this and this and this and this in the mornings. And so all of a sudden I had like a 4-hour morning routine, and I was like, this is really stressful. And so now I'm just really gentle with myself in the morning, and I'm, I like to lay in the bed, and I like to listen to books or people talking on, inspirational things. And
I like it to be different. I don't like it to be the same exact thing every day. And it's trusting that, the right meditation is going to show up. I use Insight Timer a lot. Nice. Just trusting that the whatever you're, listening to your body, what does it want? And not because we're once we get into our day, I tend to be pretty, I've got a lot of things going on in a day. So I like to just have the space to let that kind of ebb and flow, whatever that looks like on any given morning.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. So now I'm curious, what is the 5th marketing rule that we need to throw out?
The 5th marketing rule that we need to throw out is to say no to the hustle. It's, the hustle is just not going to serve us. It's that masculine driven energy. And when we get into that flow, I mean, my favorite word these days right now is my theme for this year has been soft lines. And I've also really been paying attention to the properties of water. And so there's flow, there's soft lines, there's just motion and movement, there's ripples. I mean, there's all the things that can happen with water. So that, to me, if you think about being in your business like water, and you know, letting the flow, letting the universe kind of open up and guide you, all those sorts of things, water has just really just been top of mind for me. And maybe we just bought a boat, so I'm like, but I've always been a water person. And I think being in a landlocked state, there was something that my soul was like, you need water. My son lives in Oregon. I love to go to the Oregon coast and be with him there, but I needed more water in my life. And so the more it's funny. Once I started to pay attention to that, it's like I drew a card out of the Divine Feminine deck just this weekend, and it was all about, I don't remember which one it was, but it had all those properties of water, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. And so it's like it just starts showing up everywhere for you, or for me, it's showing up everywhere for me, and I'm paying attention. So it really goes into, it's not about the driven masculine approach to business. It's not the hustle. I mean, somebody says, you know, you had to hustle to make your business happen. I'm like, oh no, you don't. You don't have to hustle. If you're stepping into your business from the feminine, you are stepping into a flow, and it is not about a hustle.
And I just want to point out too, it's not that you're flowing without direction.
Right.
Like, you know where you want to be. And I think that so often, like, I'll speak for myself and my own clients that I've had, like, you know, we maybe just be like, oh, I just thought at the beginning of my business, like, oh, I can just flow. It's like, no, but you need to know where you want to go, right?
And it doesn't mean you don't show up and do the work, because you do have to show up and do the work. And I think that's the consistency, and that sort of thing is important. The direction of where you want to be going is important. And it's a different, you're not grasping at things, right? You're not grasping at clients, or grasping at, you know, a number, or grasping at, oh my gosh, all these stories that you can play in your head. It's about letting go of those painful, or like the stories that just show up over and over and over again in your head, and say, wait a minute, this is not really serving me. Let's get aligned, and let's step into the work that I'm meant to be doing, how I'm meant to matter. And then things start to flow for you. So it takes a lot of work up front. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, because I think that, you know, at least for me, it was like, it sounded so intriguing to just be like, let me just be in my feminine, right? Because I had, you know, similar to you, I was in corporate for a very long time, and very used to the very structured, strategic, analytic, you know, everything has a box because it's an Excel spreadsheet, of course, like everything has a box. And then moving out of that, it was very easy to just be directionless. And to be like, and to be fair, I needed a reset time. So I did need that directionless time for a moment. But then, like, when we come back, there is this, you know, it's the pendulum swing, right? Of like the being in a super masculine space, and then coming into a really feminine space. And then how do we marry that for success?
So true. And it's just that analogy that you know, bringing those two together, I think, is so important. It's like, that, you know, when I go back to when I rebranded all those years ago, that was totally just being in the space and slowing down and listening and all of that sort of thing. And then I got into, okay, let's create and execute on this. And, you know, so it is that nice back and forth pendulum, as you called it, is a perfect way to think about that. And so when I talk about doing the work, it's not about, I mean, there is some point where the masculine comes in, but also doing the work means being in ourselves, being with ourselves, and being with the signs that are coming to us. And so it's a balance between those two.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Oh my God. So this has been so powerful, Kami. I'm just like, I think that this is so powerful. So I'm curious about, you know, what have been your biggest lessons in growing your business?
That's a great. My biggest lessons, well, I mean, have certainly tied to, I mean, this is where a lot of these come from, right? Is because I walk the walk and fallen into the holes and gone, okay, wait a minute, that didn't work so well. So these are rules that really generated from that. I think the other space that I'm really very focused on is this whole how we resonate is probably the most important thing that we can do for our business. Mm-hmm. So when I think about, we can have all the right branding in place, we can have all the right packaging and pricing and business model in place, and we can be out being visible. All those components can be just working perfectly. And we may not be growing our business because we have stories going on in our head that are pulling our energy down. So how we resonate is really the mastering skill that we want to get a hold of in our lives. And this is means practice, right? It's about practicing what's the mindset things that we do for ourselves on a daily basis. So making space for mindset. It's about how we feel in our bodies. So it can be physically, it can be the nutrition that we're giving ourselves. It can be energetically, how we're showing up in our bodies, but we want to be resonating in a high vibration. So that means taking care of this beautiful vessel that we have and who we are. So mindset, body. The third one is spirit, and that's spirit however you spirit. This is a spiritual journey. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a spiritual journey, and finding the way you spirit to connect into that spirit is going to be an intricate part of how you resonate. Because if you're connected, you are feeling, you're going to be vibrating on a much higher basis if you're connected to spirit. And then the fourth part of that is community. And that's being a community that uplifts you and brings you, helps you see things through a different eyes, and it's, cheering you on. If you're in a community that makes you feel less than, or, you just don't get that strong strength coming out of it, then choose another community. It's simple. So making space for those four pieces, the mind, the body, the spirit, and community on a daily basis, in one shape or another. If you're doing that every day, if you do it every day for an entire month, I actually have a little chart where people can chart that out. That if you're doing all those four things on a daily basis, you're going to notice a difference at the end of the month, and you're going to notice how things are flowing to you and coming to you. So it's just a good practice to get into. Okay, did I do something for my mind today? Did I do something for my body? If you're asking yourself those questions, the way you resonate in the world is going to be going up on it. It's just, an exponential approach to that.
Wow, I absolutely love that. I feel like that was just a mic drop moment right there. Like, that just blew my mind. I think that that's so powerful. And you have a community that you want to invite our listeners and our watchers into. So tell us a little bit about that.
So my community is Extraordinary Women Connect, and it's all about connecting great women to great women. And it's about raising each other's voices, their visibility up. We do a podcast connector post every Tuesday where we're connecting great podcast guests to great podcast hosts, because it's about getting your voice out into the world. We have all sorts of amazing ways that these women can connect with one another. And I think I'm going on, I don't know, probably 8 years of this community. And we host an annual conference called Extraordinary Women Ignite. And it's a 3-day conference with, just getting your voice out into the world that sets you up for success. So that's one way that we come together in community. And then we also do just different events all throughout the year. We've been virtual this past year, obviously, and looking forward to being back in real life.
I love that. Thank you so much for that, Kami. I think that that's a beautiful invitation. And I did put the links in the comments here, and you will be able to find this episode, as well as past episodes, the video and the audio. So you can download the audio actually from my website, which is divinefeminine.com, and it'll be /Kami_Guildner. So I am just so grateful to you, Kami. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I think this has just been such a powerful conversation, and I just know that it has added so much value to so many people. And so thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you for all that you're doing. I'm so glad and honored to know you. It's like, I'm so glad we met through eWomen Network. And it's just such I think we're such a great collaboration partners on this work that we're doing, because I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you so much. I deeply appreciate that. Now I'm like all flustered. Thank you. I appreciate that, Kami. You are such a shining star for women, and like showcasing women and having this community and being able to do this work is just, it's so fun to like watch you and see what you're doing, and to be inspired by you as well. So I encourage all of our listeners to definitely reach out to Kami. Comment on this video. We want to hear, how did this information impact you? And we're really excited to see what happens. Maybe try this mind, body, spirit, community exercise for 30 days. I'd love to hear how that goes. So with that, this has been the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast. I am your host, Celeste Hartwell, and we will see you next week. This has been the Divine Feminine Leaders podcast with Celeste Hartwell. Thank you so much for joining us today. There are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and you have chosen to spend your time with us. That is not lost on us, and we are deeply appreciative. If you want to find us online, find all the links and the free giveaways that were mentioned in the show, please join us at celestehartwell.com. That is CelesteHartwell. And you can link to this episode as well as any other episode there. If you enjoyed this episode and the content that we shared, I invite you to subscribe so that you get notifications every time a new episode is released. Or share it with a friend. If you know another female entrepreneur who could benefit from this information, we would love for you to share the love. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.